Lucas Hale lay perfectly still beneath the imported linen sheets, eyes shut, breath measured. The bedroom hummed with the low thrum of silence only the rich could afford. Thick glass windows muffled the world. Security sensors blinked softly in the dark, and the thermostat held the room at a curated comfort. But Lucas's mind refused to rest. Earlier that evening, he'd unlocked the polished steel safe nestled behind a Monet reproduction in the study, an antique code lock he'd chosen for its irony. Inside lay neatly stacked cash, bond papers, and a velvet pouch holding Elisa's wedding heirloom. He'd left it wide open, like a bleeding wound. Then he returned to bed before she came upstairs. It wasn't jealousy that prompted it. Not exactly. It was curiosity, control, maybe boredom, maybe something uglier. A test of trust, of truth, of her. You think she'll steal? His inner voice was sardonic. No, but I think she might lie. Elise moved quietly through the house below. Her footsteps padded across the marble foyer, paused. The door to the study creaked open. Lucas's pulse quickened. Still, he didn't move. A long pause, then click. The study lights, then silence. He imagined her standing there, staring at the safe, wondering, did she notice it? Would she call his name? Would she close it? Would she take anything? The minutes stretched. Lucas counted his heartbeat. 100, 200. At last, soft footsteps up the stairs. The bedroom door opened. Elise entered slowly. Lucas. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. He remained still. You're asleep already. A pause. Okay. The mattress dipped as she slid in beside him. Her scent, lavender, faint with wine, filled the air between them. She sighed. Then again. Then silence. But Lucas was wide awake now, eyes shut, thoughts crawling like ants under his skin. She hadn't said anything about the safe. Had she seen it, ignored it, or assumed something she didn't want to say? His test had failed, or perhaps it had passed. He wasn't sure which. He thought of the cash, the gold pen, the heirloom ring, all still exposed like a secret no one dared speak. I left it open, he wanted to say aloud. Why didn't you say anything? But the words sat heavy on his tongue, unsaid. He could hear Elisa's breathing, soft, regular, distant. She wasn't asleep. Not yet. Elise. He almost spoke her name. Almost. Instead, he listened as she turned her back to him. The sheets rustled. The silence deepened. The safe stayed open downstairs, bleeding quiet wealth into the shadows. Lucas didn't know it yet, but the test he'd set had opened more than a door. It had cracked something else, something old, buried, and dangerous. And in the quiet, beneath the illusion of sleep, he began to feel it. A chill, subtle and creeping. Something had changed. He just couldn't name it yet. Lucas hadn't slept a minute. He remained in that rigid stillness, eyes closed but senses sharpened. Elisa's breathing stayed measured, too even, too intentional. He could tell she was awake too, lying just inches away, facing the opposite wall. Neither spoke. The longer they said nothing, the heavier it felt. It was no longer about the safe. That door, still wide open downstairs, had become something else entirely. An echo chamber for everything unspoken between them. Then Elise shifted. Not into him, not toward comfort, but out of the bed. Lucas felt the movement as she quietly pushed the duvet aside and stepped barefoot onto the hardwood floor. She padded to the ensuite bathroom. The door didn't close. A faucet ran briefly, then silence again. She stood in the doorway for a while, breathing. Then, to Lucas's surprise, she whispered, not to him, but to herself. It's not my fault. I didn't choose it. The words hit him like ice water. His body tensed beneath the covers. I was just a kid, she said, voice fragile. You can't blame a child for what she inherits. Lucas felt a sudden urge to open his eyes, to rise, to demand answers, but something told him to wait. They tore it all down, she continued, her voice distant now. That whole block. Said it was blight. Said it was legal. Just numbers on a file. A soft sob caught in her throat. They called it development. But it was home. For them. For her. Elise paced a slow line across the floor. Her movements were soft, controlled, like she didn't trust the space around her. Lucas realized she wasn't sleep-talking. She was confessing, but not to him, to the dark. He recognized the weight in her voice. It wasn't fear. It was shame. "She used to braid my hair," Elise whispered. "She was more mother to me than mine ever was." Lucas didn't breathe. "I asked where she went. They said she found something better. But I found her name years later. Eviction notice. No forwarding address." The silence afterward was suffocating. Elise stood at the window now, bathed in moonlight, arms crossed tightly. She stared out into the treeline, motionless. "You ever wonder," she asked suddenly, "what we're still benefiting from that others paid for?" Lucas kept his eyes shut, his body still. But something twisted inside him, a coil of guilt tightening. The house felt colder now. Elise climbed back into bed, slower this time. Her back remained turned. Neither spoke again. The silence wasn't empty anymore, pulsed with memory. Lucas remained frozen, but not from the game. Something was unraveling, and he could feel the thread slipping through his fingers. Downstairs, the safe remained open, and far earlier than expected, footsteps approached the front door. The front door clicked open before dawn, barely audible under the hush of morning. Lucas stirred, eyes wide, already awake. He hadn't moved since Elise climbed back into bed hours ago. Now her breath was slow and deep, finally sleeping. He listened as soft soles moved across the marble foyer, then paused. A bag settled on the floor with a muted thud. "Mara," Lucas whispered to himself. She wasn't scheduled. Saturdays were hers to rest. He knew that. Still, there she was. Mara's presence had always been quiet. Not invisible but unnoticed. Not by malice but by habit. She moved with the grace of someone who learned long ago how not to disturb white wealth while cleaning up after it. Now Lucas listened more closely than he ever had. The footsteps approached the study. "She's going to see it. The safe. The mess I made." He rose, careful not to wake Elise, and padded barefoot to the hallway. He stopped just before the staircase, hidden in shadow. From his vantage, he could see her. Mara stood frozen in the study doorway. The light from the hallway spilled just enough to reveal the gleam of the open safe. The velvet pouch tilted on its side. A stack of bonds slightly askew. Her face, Lucas could only see part of it, twitched slightly, then went still again. She stepped in slowly. "Why is it open?" she murmured, almost inaudibly. She didn't approach it. She didn't glance around for cameras. She didn't even fix the contents. She simply closed the safe. With both hands, gently, like she was closing the lid on something sacred or dangerous. Then, as she stood upright again, her shoulders trembled. She wiped a single tear from her cheek with the back of her hand, took a breath, and whispered, "Same eyes, same tricks." Lucas's stomach dropped. "I've seen this test before." She turned slowly, not seeing him in the shadows, and made her way to the kitchen. Lucas remained still, frozen not in fear, but in shame. There had been a moment, a long time ago, when Mara braided Elise's hair every morning before school. She was more than housekeeper then. She was family, or so Lucas had told himself. But he'd never asked where she came from, never asked who she'd left behind, never asked what it meant to raise a white child while grieving your own. She had always worn the same battered shoes, gray soles worn thin, laces frayed. He remembered Elise once joked about buying her new ones. She never did. Now those shoes whispered across the floor, familiar and unchanging, as Mara returned to the front hall. She picked up her bag, put on her coat, and left as quietly as she'd come. Lucas stayed where he was, ashamed, small. "Same eyes," she'd said. His eyes. The safe was closed now, but something else was wide open and far harder to shut. Upstairs, Elise stirred, and Lucas knew he couldn't stay inside this silence much longer. Lucas sat at the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, watching morning pour in through the tall window. Elise stirred behind him. Lucas. Her voice cracked. Why are you up? He didn't turn. Mara came this morning. That woke her fully. Today's Saturday. Exactly. A long pause. Did she see the safe? Lucas exhaled. She closed it. Said nothing. Left. But she saw it. She knew. Elise sat up slowly. Why'd you even leave it open? What were you hoping to find? He finally faced her. I don't know. I wanted to see if you'd take anything. Or say something. Elise stared at him, blinking hard. You were testing me? It wasn't just about you. He rubbed his eyes. It's everything. This house. The silence. The lies we live inside. She rose and crossed the room. You think I don't see it? She snapped. You think I haven't spent every day swallowing what my family built this house on? Lucas flinched. What are you talking about? Elisa's voice cracked. Redlining. Forced sales. Fake inspections. They didn't build wealth, they extracted it. From people who didn't stand a chance. Lucas stepped back. Your dad owned apartment blocks. He bought them after the banks devalued black neighborhoods into collapse. He and his friends would show up with lawyers and cash options. Families disappeared. We got richer. The silence thickened. Elise looked down at her feet. One of them was Mara's cousin. I found out when I was 17. Lucas felt his breath shorten. You never said anything. What was I supposed to say? That my whole life was bought at someone else's expense. She looked up, voice shaking. At least your company made something real. I inherited rot. Lucas shook his head slowly. I ran facial recognition for police departments. You know how that plays out. Guess who gets misidentified most? She blinked. No. Black men. Women too. Thousands of false arrests. We have studies. My team buried them under PR reports. A long silence. Elise sat down on the stairs, her fingers gripping the polished wood banister. There's a stain on the stairwell, she whispered. From wine years ago. It never came out, no matter how many times Mara scrubbed it. Lucas sat beside her. Maybe we thought it faded, but it didn't. They stared at the worn mark on the edge of the third step. A faint maroon shadow in a sea of white. So what now? Elise asked. Lucas looked up toward the distant second floor. I need to see it. All of it. What we've done. What we've hidden. His phone buzzed in the hallway. It was a building manager from his rental firm. Something had happened in a downtown unit. Room B12. The ride downtown felt longer than it was. Lucas hadn't been to this part of the city in years, if ever. His buildings on paper were assets, managed by middlemen, visited only when a tax incentive or press opportunity required it. Today there was no press, just a faded address and a lingering weight in his chest. He stepped out of the car into cracked pavement and sour air. The building loomed above. For stories of stained brick, broken blinds and windows, and a bent security gate barely clinging to its hinges. Lucas hesitated before pushing through the door. Inside, the hall smelled like mildew and old paint. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The stairs groaned under his weight. Room B12 was in the back corner of the basement level. The door was ajar. A woman sat crying in the hallway. A child clung to her side, eyes wide. Lucas froze. He didn't do nothing. The woman shouted at no one in particular. They just came in. A voice spoke from behind him. You're late. Lucas turned. A young black man stood there, arms crossed, expression hard. He looked barely 25. Jeans scuffed, hoodie faded, but eyes sharp. Devin, he said. Community rep. Not that anyone from your company ever asked. I got a call, Lucas began. From the building manager. Devin cut in. After your surveillance flagged suspicious behavior on a heat sensor. Again. Lucas blinked. You mean a person walking to their front door? Exactly. Devin stepped closer. Tenant's name is Corey Stokes. Lives here with his mom and little brother. Until 20 minutes ago. Where is he now? Lucas asked. Cuffed. In the back of a cruiser. Thanks to your algorithm. Lucas's throat tightened. Room B12, he asked. Devin nodded. Want to see what your tech got him into? They stepped inside. The apartment was dim, furniture minimal, walls cracked. A half-eaten sandwich still sat on the kitchen counter. An open school textbook lay on the couch. That Ring camera you installed? Devin said. It misidentified Corey. Again. Thought he was a burglary suspect from 5 miles away. That shouldn't happen, Lucas muttered. But it does. Facial recognition error rate for black faces is 6 times higher. You knew that. Your CTO buried the data. Lucas looked down. His jaw tightened. You know who lived here before Corey? Devin added. A woman named Janice. Evicted last year after missing 1 rent check. Lucas's head snapped up. Janice Stokes. Devin narrowed his eyes. Yeah, you know her. Lucas stepped back. She's Mara's cousin. The words tasted like rust in his mouth. He turned, staring at the walls. There, etched faintly near the light switch, was a child's scribble. Jan plus Corey, drawn in crayon. I didn't know, Lucas whispered. You didn't want to know, Devin snapped. That's the whole model, isn't it? Profit without proximity. Lucas closed his eyes. The walls seemed to close in around him. Get him out, he said. Corey, now, drop the charges, pay the fine, and get his family a real place to live. Devin studied him. One case won't undo the others. Lucas nodded. Then tell me where to start. Devin hesitated, then pulled a worn file from his backpack. Start with this, he said. They called them the Whisper Files. Internal notes your team hoped no one would read. The file was thick, hand-assembled. Devin had highlighted passages in yellow and annotated margins in red ink. Lucas hadn't opened a paper file in years. Somehow that made it worse. He sat alone in his office that night, door locked, blinds drawn. The silence was oppressive. Only the rhythmic tick of the grandfather clock punctuated the stillness. The cover page read, Internal use only, Tier 3 deployment notes. Whispers. Whispers. A word designed to avoid attention. He flipped the page. Buried in plain sight were memos detailing strategies for marketing the facial recognition suite to law enforcement. It wasn't just efficiency they sold, it was targeting. Notes described ethnicity-aware tuning. Sample images skewed disproportionately toward black and brown faces. Lucas read line after line in disbelief. Then again, it wasn't disbelief. It was recognition. We didn't design it to be racist, he muttered aloud. But we let it become that. One memo chilled him. Flag density analysis suggests improved hit rate in high-incident zip codes. Consider labeling zips with Q-risk tags based on race-adjacent variables. Housing, arrest history, legacy data. Use marketing terms like proactive mapping. Lucas shoved the file away. He stood, heart pounding, and paced the office. Memories flickered. Quarterly review meetings. Buzzwords like disruption, efficiency, predictive. No one had said discriminatory, but no one had questioned the numbers either. He pressed his palms into the cold glass of the window and stared out into the darkness. The city lights blinked beneath him like stars fallen to earth. Behind him, the door creaked. Elise entered quietly, holding 2 mugs. Chamomile, she said, offering one. You haven't come to bed. Did you know? Lucas asked, not turning around. About the Whisper Files? Her silence answered before her words did. I found out a year ago, she whispered. I was researching that housing equity project. Devin's group published something. They referenced whispers, but no one could prove it was real. But you did. I confronted someone on your board, she admitted. They told me it was above my pay grade. She laughed bitterly. I didn't push. Lucas finally turned. Why not? Because I didn't want to lose all this, she said, motioning to the house, the view, the life. And because I wasn't sure you'd believe me. Lucas stared at her, eyes burning. Elise, a kid got arrested because of me. Mara's family was erased because of me. I built something I didn't understand until it was too late. She took a step forward. So what are you going to do now? He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the file again. Its weight now matched the one in his chest. I need to face it all. Every contract, every partner, every lie. You'll lose the board. Good. Elise looked at him, really looked. Then I'll stand with you. Lucas almost smiled. Almost. No speeches. No press tours, he said. Just real work. Quiet. On the ground. She nodded. That's the only kind that matters. They stood in the glow of the hallway light, two silhouettes weighed down by truth. Behind them, the safe still stood locked. But its echo, the silence it broke, the questions it stirred, now filled every corner of their lives. Lucas turned to the window one last time before bed. In the distance, lights flickered near the edge of the city. Devon's neighborhood. That's where I'll start, he said. And in the morning he'd speak to them, not as a billionaire, not as a savior, but as a man trying to rebuild what his silence had helped break. The press room buzzed with tension. Rows of reporters sat in sterile silence, blinking beneath fluorescent lights. Cameras clicked, lenses trained. Screens behind the podium bore the company's name, Visage Systems, in sterile blue, flanked by the phrase, "Future through Vision." Lucas stood alone at the podium, fingers curled around the edges. No legal team, no PR rep, no carefully edited statement. Just him and a truth he could no longer avoid. He cleared his throat. For a long time, I believed I was building something useful, something neutral, something modern. But I was wrong. A ripple moved through the room. Pens scribbled. A mic blinked red. Our technology, the one I founded, was sold under the promise of safety. But in reality, it became a weapon. One wielded unfairly against communities that were already vulnerable. He paused, jaw tightening. We sold facial recognition to police departments without accountability. We buried error reports. We ignored studies showing our tech misidentified people of color at a rate we never accepted for white faces. More flashes. A few gasps. A slow, dawning silence. This company helped put innocent people in jail. It destroyed trust, profited from fear, and I allowed it. For that, I'm not just sorry. I'm responsible. He looked down, heart hammering. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as CEO of Visage Systems. A wave of commotion. Cameras jolted. Reporters leaned forward. And today, I am pledging $80 million toward a restitution fund for those wrongfully detained, evicted, or harmed due to our software. Their names matter. Their futures matter more than our bottom line. Lucas's voice broke slightly. This isn't redemption. It's the beginning of accountability. I don't expect applause. I only ask that others in power stop pretending they don't see the consequences of their silence. He stepped away from the mic. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions, legal implications, shareholder reactions, political backlash. But Lucas didn't answer. He walked off stage and out the side door, his footsteps echoing through the corridor. Outside, a cool wind swept through the lot. Elise stood by the car, hands stuffed in her coat pockets, hair pulled back, eyes distant. "It's done," he said. "I watched," she replied. He studied her face. "You okay?" "No," she looked away. "I haven't been for a while." Silence stretched between them. "I need space," she said at last. "Not from you exactly. From all of it. I've spent years decorating pain, polishing it until I forgot what it was." Lucas's heart sank. "Are you leaving?" She nodded slowly. "I need to find out who I am when I'm not just protecting a lie." Lucas took a step forward, but stopped himself. "I get it," he said quietly. "You're doing the right thing," she added. "But I need to do mine." He opened the car door for her. She hesitated, then got in. The engine started. As the car pulled away, she didn't look back. Lucas stood alone in the parking lot. Behind him, the company he built buzzed with panic and spin. Ahead of him, a long road of repair. Later that night, he returned home to silence. He walked to the study, past the painting, and opened the hidden panel. Inside, the safe remained locked. He stared at it a long time. "It was never about what was inside," he murmured. It was about what we chose not to see. He didn't open it. Instead, he walked to his laptop, opened a blank document, and typed a single title: Community Reparation Ledger. Phase 1. He would start small. Anonymous donations, legal aid grants, lease forgiveness. No credit, no interviews, just action. Outside, dawn broke slowly, light blooming over the trees. Lucas stepped onto the balcony, coffee in hand, eyes on the horizon. Somewhere out there, Mara was planting, and he knew where he needed to go next. The shovel slid into soil with a soft crunch. Lucas wiped sweat from his brow as the sun climbed over the rooftops. His hands were blistered, his nails dirty, and his back ached in a way that felt honest. It had been 3 months since the press conference. No interviews, no op-eds, just work. He showed up to the garden uninvited at first, stood awkwardly at the gate until Devin spotted him. "You here to write a check or pull weeds?" Devin had asked, arms crossed. "Weeds," Lucas replied. "Then grab a trowel." Now he came every Saturday. Never late, never praised. Rows of collards, sweet potatoes, and tomatoes lined the plots. Kids from the neighborhood planted beans in soda bottles. Old men traded stories under the shade tarp. And at the far end, surrounded by marigolds, was Mara. She wore the same shoes. Lucas approached slowly. He didn't want to startle her. "Morning," he said gently. "You're early," she replied, not looking up. "Just wanted to finish the mulch by noon." She stood, stretched, and handed him a pair of gloves. "You're learning," she said. They worked in silence. A rhythm. Dig, plant, water. No questions. No confessions. That was the unspoken agreement. He wasn't there to be forgiven, just to show up. After a while, Mara finally spoke. "You know what I like about gardens?" Lucas shook his head. "They don't care who you were. Only what you give now." He nodded. "Then I'll keep giving." She looked at him then, not with warmth, not with disdain, just a quiet acknowledgement. A few feet away, Devin laughed with the kids as a sprinkler spun in circles, throwing arcs of water across the soil. The camera would have panned wide, catching Lucas kneeling beside Mara, pressing seedlings into the earth. No spotlight, no monologue, just hands in dirt, shoulder to shoulder. The final voiceover would have come slow, soft. He thought justice would come like thunder, but it came like this: patch of soil, place to kneel, not to be seen, only to serve. This is how repair begins, not with power, but with presence. Not with a safe full of wealth, but with an open hand, planting something that might one day feed someone else. And so he stayed.